Hi everyone, welcome back to Friday Night Blogs. Matt Sison here. I've got a wonderful guest for you today. I'm so excited. I can't even tell you how excited I am. She's a wonderful lady. Just let me give you a quick synopsis of her. She's got a doctorate in theology. She's a certified hypnotherapist. She's a certified coach, certified hope coach, right? Life coach, hope coach. She's a public speaker. If you need somebody for your public speaking gigs, you're going to want it. After this, after you hear her story and after what she's gone through and how she's gone past it, you're going to want to hire her for your public speaker stuff. And she's also a trainer. So everybody, please welcome Miss Ordena Hope. Hey, hi Ordena, how are you?
I'm fine, Matt. Everything is wonderful.
I am very excited. We've been corresponding here and there through emails and through Facebook messages for a while, right? And I got your book, right? Here's your book, right? I got the book, and this is really, as I was looking over this book, I found it obviously quite fascinating, but I've also found it very difficult to read because you just went through so much, right? And I kept okay. After I kept reading one story of yours, I go, oh, okay, that's horrible. And then I keep going, and then you're coming up with enlightenments through each one, and I go, another story. I'm like, okay, that's got to be the worst of the worst. And then it just keeps getting absolutely worse. I don't mean to like highlight all your worst situations here, but I just found it so fascinating, and most. I think a lot of people would have just crumbled and just wilted on that, you know. But oh, okay. So I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just so excited to meet you. But give everybody a quick idea, just a little synopsis of your history, why you came up with the book, if you would. And I found this title very interesting, "Branded Rape," and I didn't quite understand what that meant until I started reading through it. And now I get it, because it's not something that I would normally have to go through, right? So I don't go, but people who've gone through this, I'm sure they understand it, right? So could you just give us a quick idea of?
Well, Matt, when I wrote the book, it was a very difficult write. And I'm not a person, history-wise, of writing fluff, or when I train, I train specifically. So it was very hard for me to try to make it more pretty than it was. It was not a great experience. And I came up with the name Branded Rape because more times than not, women or men who have been raped tend to find themselves in that situation more than once. Those are the odds. And so...
find themselves in the rape situation, even for men?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. History have shown that the odds are if you've been raped once, you probably will be raped twice in your lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And so it's when I began to question the why of it all and to understand the limitations and the boundaries that people who have been raped, the boundary lines are skewed. So there seems to be some type of brand where people can recognize the vulnerability of it all.
Yeah, you know, I had a martial arts instructor a long time ago, and he told me that, and he used to work with police officers and all that, and he told me that victims aren't chosen at random; they're chosen. They're not chosen at random, right? So it's wow, and that was actually when he said that, that just made me think a lot. That was, wow, you have so much in this book. I don't even know where to start, to tell you the truth, because there's so much. But the whole branded rape thing. So when you came up with that title, like I'm sure you must have been playing with different titles.
I did, but I wanted a strong title because it's a strong subject.
Yeah.
And it's a subject that most people avoid, but as a person who's been through it, it is sort of a branding.
Yeah.
And it's branding stigmatism wise in the community, in your family, and just overall.
Yeah.
And once you've been through it, it seems to carry with you throughout your lifetime. So I wanted to use a title that would reflect exactly the truth of it all. And it is a brand that women tend to carry.
You know, as a coach myself and hypnotherapist, you know, I've dealt with a lot of clients who had these particular issues. But honestly, Ordena, I don't mean to make fun or light of this, but you just had one after the other that was absolutely insane. And I kept thinking, man, how could somebody go through this? You were just, I mean, out of all, if there's any one lesson like that you might have learned from everything that you've gone through, I'm sure it's more than one lesson, but what would that be?
To speak. To tell your story, because it is your story, and people need to know the truth of it all. They need to know the depths, the width, the impact.
Yeah.
And I don't think society has the desire to stick through the impact of it all.
Wow.
As far as a woman speaking forth or a man speaking forth about rape, it seems to be swept under the rug, pushed in the back, and carrying a label of raped.
Yeah.
People tend to shy down and cower down and go into the background of it all.
Real quickly, what were the statistics again on how many people have been raped? Oh. Oh.
It's most like it in front of me. I wish I had, but the odds are, if you've been raped once, you will be raped twice.
Okay, I'm sorry. I actually Skype did a little thing. What were the statistics again?
It's almost like 1 in 8.
Wow, wow. So that's a good part of the population.
Yes.
I mean, that's wow. So this, I mean, yeah.
Might be closer than that, but I'm just going to throw it out like that because I don't have the statistics in front of me. But it's very close. Really, it's a wow factor.
I remember actually reading something about like I mean, rape and molestation. I guess they have very similar ties, right? I remember reading something that molestation was actually, even with women, it was 1 in 3, almost.
Yes, yes. And it's sad that children have to endure that, and society have not embraced the true impact or the true consequence that comes behind it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and we don't talk about it. I mean, it's only here and there a few people talk about it, but if it's like 1 in 3 in women, I mean, wow, that's crazy. You know, I found this fascinating, especially in the beginning when you start talking. I don't want to give the book away, but you start talking about this idea about living from a lie.
Yes.
Right? I don't know how much you want to give, but
well, actually, there's the second book is coming out because I found out after giving the book to family members that it wasn't actually a lie. But in my mind, it was a lie. Because as a child living in fear, and I told a lie not understanding the impact of the lie. So
can we tell everybody what the lie was?
Yes, that I was raped.
Okay, nice. Okay. You're going to have to get the book, guys, because it's absolutely fascinating. Now, do you think, and this is a tough question, because a lot of people ask, when they see somebody go through something like this and come out to the other side, they kind of ask, do you think that you had to go through all this, right, to share that greater plan that you have?
I think words have definition. And I think when you put a word out into the universe, it draws it to you. And so in my mind, I think speaking that out loud and living the burden of that lie created a cycle of drawing to me. And just, I'm not going to say the road was easy because it really wasn't, but coming out on the other side, understanding that there are women who put that out there. And so I was charged to write because I want people to see both sides. Yeah. You tell a lie, and it impacts not only you, but everything around you. However, when the truth hits you because you called that into your space, you're not ready for that. And that's an impact. It's almost like a cyclonic impact that it will overtake your life and the people around you.
Wow, that's neat. Now, at some point, as you were starting to live out this lie, and I kept reading it, were there points where you think you could have had enough awareness where things could have changed or you could have turned things around?
if I would have had a network of positive people who encouraged me to process, I think I probably would have made different decisions. However, once you've been pushed past your boundaries with molestation, there's a there's a very thin line that's been broken with authority. Excuse
Mm.
me. And there's a very thin line broken with power and self-power. And so when that line has been skewed and blurred, you tend to make non-prosperous decisions, should I say.
Wow. Well, yeah, because if you really do believe that lie, I mean, you obviously create from that lie, and you start pulling to you situations, and talking about the idea of vibration, you start vibrating with certain people
Yes.
who actually do see that. I mean, I find that really amazing because so obviously it's not something that I would go for, right? I mean, so but perpetrators, they almost seem to have like this magnet. They
Yes.
find people with a certain history, with a certain background, with a certain belief, right? I mean, I just find that absolutely incredible. How do you think that goes about?
That's a question that I asked actually in the book, and I've been asking because these are people you have to keep in mind if you want to have a rational mindset. You have to keep in mind that these are people who are respected in the community, respected in the family dynamics, and for some second they shift. And I don't know if it was because when I told the lie was the activation of the molestation. So I don't know if it's you put that in the mind and then it begins to stir.
Right.
And so since you're already damaged goods or victim, then it's not a damaging again. So but then there's other dynamics that's put in place where people have the possession of power, a desire for possession of power. So when you take someone's innocence or the innocence of love distributed out, they tend to want to hoard that.
Yeah.
So it kind of gets off balance.
Wow. You know, my
Not
wife.
necessarily.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Skype's kind of jumping around a little bit. Um, so, hold on. There you go. So my wife went through something similar, right? And she had got molested when she was younger, and it definitely affected her entire life. I mean, everything was centered around that. I mean, and she didn't have a way to express it when she was younger, so she was acting out in so many ways. Did you find yourself acting out?
Oh yes, I think I was more promiscuous because you don't understand the boundaries of the no, it shouldn't happen, until someone comes along and say, hey, that's not how society works or life is, and or you tend to misplace your trust in people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or some people reject the whole population of male, and so it's a lot of things. And I went through the whole cycle of it, and I just think that as a child, not understanding the growth process of into maturity and making proper decisions when the adult male or person, it could be female, has transcended their boundaries and elevated you up to a space where you're not mature enough to be in, then that creates a pre-maturing,
Right.
and or making non-prosperous decisions because you're forced to be in a space where you have not any tool set to be in.
Yeah. Good. Actually, that's a great point because I find that people going through some situations like this, their childhoods just have been robbed,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How do you find a way to get back to that?
I myself just began once the healing process was over.
Yeah.
I began to do the things in my childhood that I wanted to do.
Wow.
And so I make dolls, I cook cakes, I just have fun. I live life fun because I live life sad, and I live life angry and just crazy, bitter. And now, moving out of that space, I don't have the reflecting process that I used to have.
Wow. Yes. And I suppose before you processed everything, you were stuck in that reflecting process.
You're stuck. You're stuck in a timestamp. And until it's with any trauma, until you understand what exactly the dynamics, the cycle that is in that particular trauma that's holding you back in that timestamp, you can't move forward in life.
Right.
And it's not that you keep looking back, but it's stuck on you.
Right.
Time is moving around you, and you're not, even though your body, physical, mental, is growing, and each day is passing, that stamp, that pressure is still there. That darkness is still there until somebody comes along or you stumble across something that brings forth light. You can't move forward into the day.
That's a great way of putting it. I've never actually heard it in that particular way of saying it. So that was really good. Now, what kind of processes do you use?
Well, my first processing that I used was to speaking out and
Yes.
making people listen. I thought I was making people listen, but it actually caused a purging with me. And I stopped taking medications. I was on medications. I was going to psychiatrists. But when I was going to psychiatrists, and no disrespect,
Yeah.
they were making me relive the trauma every day. Relive the trauma. But I wanted to process the story.
Right.
The
Right.
difference between you just speaking and I'm hurt,
Yeah.
is, okay, this is what happened. Now, what exactly happened? What is the wrong in the happening?
Mm.
And how did it make me feel? What was the disconnect with my family dynamics? Because my mother has
Nice.
just become my
Yes.
competition,
Yeah.
or I just became my mother's competition. And that's a strong place to be in as a parent, to when you have to look at your child as competition and try to process that dynamic. So you lose your mom, you lose there's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect with the father figure, and these different disconnects. And when you try to process the connection between the trauma, then you can move forward and lose some of the darkness.
That's nice, because I do think that a lot of techniques out there and a lot of therapists out there focus too much on the trauma, and they don't get the entire picture, right? And then it's almost as if sometimes they can process the trauma, but because they haven't got the whole story,
Yes.
it
Yes.
still keeps playing out over and over again,
Yes.
right? They don't get the entire lesson. Wow. You know, I heard you earlier. You said that you tried. I think you said it, that you almost tried to pretty it up a little bit.
I did, and that was a lie. So to get out of the lie, I have to tell what is. However, I didn't want to pull you totally into the darkness either, because you can re-traumatize people and traumatize people who are unaware.
Yeah.
And so I put just enough in for you to stir up some type of emotion.
Yeah.
However, and know the full picture of what's going on, and question.
Mm.
Each chapter I put question in there, and then at the end I put, well, this is how I breathe into that situation now. This is how I see the light in that, and the lesson.
I can't imagine if you pretty this up. Wow, you're a tough woman.
Thank you.
Really tough. Real quick, is your mom still around, or your biological parents? How is the relationship now?
Well, actually, as I began to write the book, there was discoveries during the writing of the book, and it seemed like the book just drew people. It's all about intention, your mind, and I believe that when I began to address the stories in there,
Mm-hmm.
it awakened people to address the story.
Yeah.
And even though me and my mom has never sat down and actually had the step-by-step dynamics of what happened, we discussed the forgiveness process, and we discussed that it happened to her, and it happened in our generation.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like the brand is not only on your life, it's on your generational imprint.
Yeah.
And so understanding that after writing the book and she telling her piece of the same story, then it began to pull out compassion for me, towards her. And ironically, my stepfather, as I began to write the story, came back and with his side of the story and his traumas and apologies and all these things. So that's coming out in the next book.
Oh,
But
wow. Nice.
I'm just thankful that when you become, that's why it's very purposeful to speak, because the healing process not only comes to you, but it comes right back to that whole situation that was interrupted, the whole dynamic that was interrupted begins to get balanced. So there's hope.
Yeah. But how about with the people who want to speak, but they're just so badly damaged that they can't find their voice to speak?
I say moan and groan until you can speak.
Nice.
I say write. It's write out what you want to say. You may not have to give it to anyone, but as you begin to write out your words and accept the anger and accept the frustration.
Nice. Sorry, I get excited. You know, I like that because I'm sorry, let me jump in, because I like the idea that you're talking about accept this, accept this, accept this, because so many people try to spiritually bypass all of that anger, all of the man. They try to go straight for forgiveness. They try to go straight for the thankfulness, and they can't get there. Right?
Yeah, because you have to thank the anger.
Yeah.
The anger is a signal that says something went wrong and someone needs to help or listen. Help listen to the process. You know, and so I think if we accept that God put anger in us, just as sure as you cannot understand happiness if you don't accept anger. And so when we validate the anger, validate the hurt, validate the pain, then we can move forward and validate the forgiveness. Because it makes no sense to offer up forgiveness if I have this pain.
Yeah,
and if
right.
I still have this anger, and if I have not addressed it, there is no way I can truthfully say I can offer up forgiveness.
Nice. That is awesome. You know, a lot of people talk about letting go and letting God, right? So they kind of mistake it. They think like, all I got to do is surrender to God. But but you can't surrender to God because you're holding in all the anger. And
Exactly.
right?
And if you forgive God, you can't surrender to God until you forgive Him.
Nice.
The allowance.
Nice.
And I think we get stuck is because we have a idea of how things were supposed to go.
Right.
And until we forgive that process that it didn't happen, then we can say, well, it did. Now, you say all things work for the good of all. So what is the good of all in this process? There's a little girl out there who can't speak. There's a mother out there who can't speak. There's a father out there who, in reflection, don't understand his process of what he's done. There's a man out there who don't understand the whole fence he just tore down. So in that, I'm just thankful that where I got a voice, because I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And somewhere that voice kept stirring and courage came up with the voice. And so in that process, I just think that somewhere, I'll just pray with this book that somewhere, somehow, somebody get help, hope, healing.
Well, you gave me that hope, and I didn't even go through that situation. So, so thank you for that. I find that sometimes, even though you could have been through the worst of the worst, there might be somebody early on in your life that might have given you that little influence to kind of shape the rest of your life, to give you that strength to speak up, to give you that strength. Was there somebody like that in your life too?
It was my aunt. She's passed now. She just told me, I was so afraid when I was younger after this process, and I wouldn't speak to no one. I was really depressed. I was suicidal, all these things. And so she came to me and she said, anytime you need me, I'll be here. And I'm like, you can't be here. And she says, just speak it into the wind and I'll come.
Wow.
And then she says, and that's just like God. Speak it into the wind and He'll come. And in my not believing, I believe God abandoned me. I believe He didn't know my name. I believed all these things. And when she passed, I asked God, she She had a heart attack and my grandmother had a heart attack at the same time. So I asked God to spare her. Just in my ignorance, I was asking to spare her until we situated my grandmother. And she began to breathe in that moment. And so that awakened me to everything she told me. And in that moment, I just realized that there is something out there. I don't understand what it is, but there is something out there that hears me.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to yell out to it no matter what it looks like when it comes back, because it hears me. And when you're living in a space where nobody hears you, they listen, but nobody hears you because you don't know how to articulate, you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to imprint on them the fullness of what is going on inside, the storm that's inside, because the storm that was outside is over. There's still a storm in the inside. And I was so willing to embrace whatever came. And I call it God because it answered me, you know. And so then I began to study this process. That's how I began.
Wow. You know, again, just talking about the process, and again, how most people don't want to admit what they've been holding on to inside of them. But I always say, like, if the only place it really hurts you is if you keep it inside of yourself, right? Because if you keep it inside of yourself, God can't help you, or whatever you want to call that being, right? It can't, or that energy, it can't help you if you keep it stuck in. But I see so many people are just so scared because they think, well, if I let it out, then it's going to even happen even more, and I'll never come back to who I truly am, right? They think, oh, if I say it, then that's what's going to keep coming back. But I think what you're talking about is you're saying it with the idea of cleaning it and letting it go, so that God can come in and help, right?
And just saying help, and just saying help. That I wouldn't say help for a long time because I felt damaged, I felt bruised, I felt dirty, I felt all these negative things. And to reach up out of the dirt, the muck, the mire, and say help when you think people will look at you like, I'm not touching that.
Right.
I'm not going to reach down in that dirt, and I'm sorry, this one you're going to have to drown.
Yeah.
When that's not the truth. The truth is most people want to help. Most people want to help you process. They just don't know how, or they don't know you need it. Right. So have the voice, even if it's just help, until somebody, help will come. Words have definition, they have vibration. It will come if you want it.
Nice. So now this book, right? It's very written very straight. What kind of, and you kind of talked about it, but what kind of audience were you looking to get?
Two different kinds. The first, my intentional writer, my intentional audience as I wrote was the abuser. And I wrote to the abuser and the court system. Hopefully one judge somewhere will hear it and understand the impact. I wrote so that they could question, and not that they question themselves, but understand the fullness of what happened. Right. Because we so easily brush off what we don't see, the bruises, we don't see the scars, we don't see all these things. So it's easy to, okay, you're still standing. So you're not dead. So you understand the fullness of what went on. So as I began to write this to them, hopefully somewhere they can answer.
I see. Now I can see when I'm looking back at the book, I can see some of the intention behind it, because it is like some of it's get in your face kind of writing, right? Wow. Now, as a man reading this, what would you like me to take away from it?
Understanding your power, understanding your presence, understanding your authority, understanding the impact that you have over the people who look up to you, over the people who embrace you. Understanding that all embraces can be misunderstood. Love is a sensation, a process, a state of being, a state of mind that can be misunderstood. And as a man, it is your responsibility to keep it bridled in its purity, in its richness, and to all those that are around you.
Right. Wow, no, that's neat. Yeah, we have to be constantly aware. I mean, there's just no running. We can't sit and ignore. We can't drug it away. We can't sex it away. We can't, eat it away. We really have to sit there into the awareness so that we can treat the people the way we would like to be treated.
Yeah.
All right?
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
This reminds me. After I wrote the book, I actually ran into one of the guys in here that raped me,
Yes, I remember that.
and it's in the book too. But it's just understanding that all people who do this act are not bad people.
Right.
They or not. I'm not going to discount those that have bad intentions.
Sure.
I think what happens is a process of being wanted overshadows the process of just being.
Right.
Makes sense. And I think it's a process
That makes a lot of sense because I'm currently putting my own book out, and there are some scenes that I talked about with my dad who did some things that most people would not like, right? But like you said, it's not that he was a bad person. It's not. I mean, I love my dad dearly, right? But he had his own process to go through, right? Which led me to my own process that I had to go through. And let me ask that question because when you wrote the book, this is my own personal question now. So when you wrote the book, how did that affect the relationship with you and your mom as she was reading it and knowing that this was going public and people would read it?
She hasn't read it.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
But we've discussed.
But she knows about it.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We've discussed a lot of the issues, and I think with this process, and I'm so thankful that I wrote it because she's in her 60s, and she's now beginning to express her needs, her reasons why she sheltered us in certain spaces and couldn't shelter us in other spaces.
Right.
And and understanding, as I thought she was a powerful woman, and in her stance above us in life, she felt she wasn't a powerful woman. Yeah. And so now, as she knows this book and she knows I'm speaking out into the community, she is beginning to speak herself. And I'm whispering words of encouragement into her life and helping her process her, dynamics that have been disconnected with men and with the fact that all men are not mean people or all people, we come into a space of bitterness, and I'm helping her chisel and unveil her beauty that is in within. So I'm just thankful for being able to see this process with her.
That's neat. One of the quotes from the Bible that I like, and I'm probably going to butcher the heck out of this, was something about Jesus. He said, I do not come here wielding peace. I come here wielding a sword, right? And it was basically, I can't remember it. It's like breaking you from your dad's dad and your dad and the patterns of the generations, right? And so just hearing a lot of static. Okay, so what I'm hearing though is that you're breaking generation patterns.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's my prayer. My prayer that it stops with me. My prayer is that my children will never have to see the traumas that I've seen. My prayer is that the men in my generation will never stand up to abuse the way I was abused. That is my prayer, that I draw the line here. And that's why I wrote the second book, Releasing the Brand, and coming out from under these curses that we hold dear to.
Right.
And we don't understand that we have the power of the letting go process in us, which will cause a never happening in the next generation.
Nice.
So I'm hoping.
Nice. That was exactly where I wanted to see where it was going to go. So excellent. Thank you. Now for women, right? What message do you want to send out to them through the book?
Well, I want women to see that they are not alone in this process. Someone out there has gone through, someone does understand, and someone has articulated it for you, with you, and you can take my words and question yourself and say, it may not be you. All of it, pray to God, no one has to go through that.
Yeah.
Full dynamics of what I went through. But that one who, and I don't want them to ever think that, wow, she went through this, my process is small. That's not the message I want to send out. The message I want to send out is it's all huge. It's all huge. And it all needs healing. And there is light at the end of this tunnel. It's not a death, dying tunnel that you have to live in. You don't have to live in darkness. There is light.
Wow. What a great message.
Yes.
I love that message. Real quickly, so now there are so many diverse types of rape,
Yes.
right? And you went through all of them, I guess.
Pretty much.
Right. And so some people will want to ask, were you a victim of the whole story as told, or in parts?
I think I have to say no.
Okay.
And I have to say no because you can only be a victim once.
Oh, nice. I get
And
it.
so at the point when I'm awakened and I allow, then I'm no longer a victim.
Okay.
And so in that process, let me get this right. There are times when if I'd have stilled myself and listened to the God within me that warns us, I'm sure I would have heard the not today.
Oh.
And so, but fear, the fear that rises up in us kind of immobilizes us
Yeah.
in our storm up here. And so we move into a space of allowing, well, I'm damaged. Instead of saying, this won't happen to me today.
Right.
I can do something different. I don't have to succumb to you. I can yell for help and not wonder what they will say because of the past or question me. This is not about me. This is about you. And when I can take the stance of this is not about me because I'm not doing anything ill will. This is about the one who's done the ill will. And if people can separate themselves from that, then I think the victimization cycle will no longer continue.
And I imagine that's part of the process that you share with people and move them through the stuff that they stuffed in, right? Wow. And I want to know more about that. Now, at the end of each chapter, you touch briefly on celebration points and moments of thankfulness. Can you kind of explain that?
Well, I didn't want to put a lot in there because I didn't want to take away from what I was saying. Now, keeping in mind the book was written first and foremost to the abuser. So I'm saying yes, you abuse me, but I have in me thankfulness. I have in me still a celebration. So where you have dimmed the light, you did not stomp out the light. And so I have to put that in there. I put that in there to give hope, trinkets of hope, to give my sounding brass, my sounding horn out to say, I'm thankful. And you are a part of that thankfulness, and it goes back to the Bible where it say, what was meant for my bad was really meant for the bad was meant for my good. I just chopped that up. But those ill wills that happen to us, somewhere in there's good that's going to come out of that. And I just wanted to celebrate the good that did come out of that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be very precise and to the point specific as well.
What a great saying. You dimmed my light, but you did not stomp it out. Wow. And as long as there's a little glimmer of that light, right?
And it flickers. When you speak and when you moan and when you groan, it flickers, and I believe the vibrational force, the darkness, the God wakens to that flicker. And so I'm just thankful for it because I have met women whose light has been stomped out and they've taken their lives.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what I was trying to get to earlier, right? Because I think if some people would have been half through what you had gone through, they would have stopped down their own light, right?
Oh, believe me, Matt, I have tried to take my own life.
Yeah.
The forces that be said not so. And I have to be thankful that the forces that be, because the choices that I chose, there's no logical medical reason why I'm still here.
Right.
And so I would have to say the gods that are God, the beings, I mean, whatever, the force, the great force of love chose me to be here to stand in the gap for those women who couldn't speak, can't speak, and won't speak. And I'm just thankful for that process that my parents had.
Well, you know, very thankful for women like you who are leading the way. I mean, as I read more and more stuff, and I see, as you look on Facebook, as you look at everything going on around you, women are speaking their voice now, right? And it seems like that feminine energy is rising more and more, right? I think she just won the Peace Award this year. It was Malala. I don't know if you know about her, but she had got shot over in the Mideast somewhere. Half her face was taken off, but she's being a voice for all these women who have been so suppressed for so long. And she had shared this amazing speech, and there's this video of everybody actually reiterating her speech. It's a really neat video clip, and they're all standing up, and they're all saying, "I can't take it anymore," right? And that feminine energy is so powerful, and we've stomped it down. We really have too long, and it really needs to come up more. Nice. Okay, nice. Now, I know that you have a few things going on. I know that you're going for a grant, right?
Yes, I just received a grant to do breast and cervical cancer awareness in the neighboring city of Danville, Illinois here. And just to enlighten women who are between 18 and 39, because that's the market that doesn't get tested, to get screened, because there's been a rise in the sexual activation in the nation. So we just want that population to understand that it is one of the highest death rates among women, and it's moving into that age bracket. So just to educate and aware.
Now, how did you get personally involved with that?
Well, one of the ministers at the church I attend, New Life Church of Faith, offered it to me, and I just was so happy and thankful that to be a part of the process.
So it just called to you.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like since you're going through this process, you're starting to really listen to what you're being called to, and you're acting out on it. Wow. Now, do you have any particular workshops or anything coming up, or anything we should know about? Any more books, right?
Oh, I have my next book that it's already out, but I am promoting is The Essence of Rest.
Right.
And it's really one of the, I don't want to say sequels for Branded Rape, but it actually teaches them how to rest in the God that is.
Nice.
And love that is. And there's process in there of understanding that resting process. And there's sayings in there that understanding the full dynamic of what rest is. Nice. And truly allowing and the letting go.
I love that. I love that title and the idea of it, because most people don't ever rest. I mean,
ever rest. There are definitions of rest that you wouldn't even think that rest is. Yeah. And so it's just a little fun book, but it's it's very deep too.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get it now. Now, would somebody have to read Branded Rape in order to read that?
No.
Okay.
It has its own separate space, but I think that people who have read Branded Rape, or who have been in trauma, not necessarily rape, but trauma, or just someone who's just trying to center themselves and find balance, I think as well that this would help as well.
Wow. Now, how can people get a hold of you? Through website?
I have a website, OrdenaHope.com. They can also email me at consult@OrdenaHope.com.
Okay. Okay, guys. Yeah, excellent. So everybody go check out the book, right? I'll put a link on this YouTube video down below so they can order it, because you guys are going to get blown away by this read. I mean, what Ordena goes through, it's absolutely incredible. But the fact that she actually went through it, and that she actually moved through it and came out to the other side of it, tells me that there's hope for just about everybody, right? Ordena, thank you so much for taking this time out. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I just wish, I hope God provides you with the light, which is already provided, that you can share your story with the entire world.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you offering and inviting me on your show.
Thank you.